Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I want to take a bit of time to give some overview comments about our session this year. I think it has been a very successful session. Two or three major items that we come away from in the session this year. Number one, I think the hallmark of our session has been a real commitment to fiscal accountability and fiscal conservatism. It's our centennial year. And we've called on our centennial year to be more than just a collection of parades and ceremonies. We have advocated that our centennial year be a year of ideas. And this year, we feel like we entered into the political debate a rather novel idea, and that's the notion that government can spend less money than it did the year before, particularly in a year where we had more money to spend. It is, as I say, a hallmark achievement, I think, of this legislative session. And we think it was right to give the taxpayers a break, some breathing space, and we spent less money this year than we did before. The first time in our state's history, we believe, that ever to have been the case in a non-budget shortfall year. We coupled that commitment to fiscal restraint and responsibility with a continued commitment to tax relief, particularly for working families. And I think it's a real maturation of the new conservative majority in the House that we were able to accomplish these two things. Over the last 2 years, we had been able to accomplish some tax relief, but the restraint in government spending had not been there. This year, we were able to couple those things together, and I think the vast majority of Oklahomans share our commitment to that type of fiscal conservatism, responsibility, and restraint when it comes to taxation. Highlights in terms of our tax agenda include the tax credit for stay-at-home parents. We're the first state in the country to treat stay-at-home parents equally with those who choose to utilize daycare services. We have an acceleration of our state income tax cut. Fundamentally, we think a high income tax punishes work and savings and investment, and we need to continue our efforts to reduce that tax in this state. We have eliminated altogether the franchise tax on most small businesses in Oklahoma, and we're also providing a sales tax holiday for families for their back-to-school purchases. As a second overall point this year, you've seen an expansion of the conservative agenda at the Capitol. The last 2 years, obviously, we had a dynamic in the Senate, which caused, unfortunately, the Republican conservative agenda of the House to be funneled down as the session developed, as more and more bills were killed over in the Senate. This year, with the split Senate, we were able to not only accomplish a good, solid majority of the items that were on our initial agenda at the beginning of session, but that agenda continued to grow and expand. A perfect example are our efforts in education. In OLAP, we were able to tie continued investment in OLAP to higher standards and more accountability. In terms of teacher compensation, the earlier proposals were for across-the-board pay raises, not tied at all to performance or merit. And we injected into the debate the fact that we fully support increases to our educators in terms of compensation, but we fundamentally believe that those compensation increases need to be tied to performance and merit and accountability. The final big takeaway, I think, from the session is clearly that the rules have changed. The new dynamic at the Capitol really prevented the forces of the status quo from stopping our change agenda, whether it was in tax policy, education, a whole host of areas. The split Senate gave a new life and new breath to those types of reform items. And frankly, the governor was put to the test. And I think you saw some true colors beginning to shine through for the governor as he was forced to take positions like the veto on the lawsuit reform agenda, his earlier veto on the pro-life agenda, etc. But at the end of the day, we certainly weren't able to accomplish many things. To sum up, we continued the Academic Achievement Awards, which again is a merit-based bonus for the school sites that are achieving well on an objective criteria. We were able to pass our tuition guarantee plan, or the tuition lock, which guarantees a set rate of tuition for students over their 4 years in college. I think a college education should be available for every Oklahoman who has the academic merit and commitment to go to college, not just a privileged few. and access to higher education should not be limited just to those who come from a wealthy family. Government accountability and efficiency, another hallmark achievement, I think, of our session was our commitment to government accountability. We eliminated right off the bat approximately 20 boards and commissions that we felt were redundant, no longer necessary. We passed the Google government bill to make sure that the government expenditures were all in the open and accessible for the citizens of this state. We passed the Second Century Entrepreneurship legislation, House Bill 2105, that sets up a one-stop shop at the Department of Commerce. Anybody who wants to start a business shouldn't have this labyrinth of bureaucracy and forms and procedures at various different state agencies that they have to go fill out and hurdles to jump through to start a business in the state. We need more small businesses. We passed very important pro-life legislation, as you know, again on the heels of historic pro-life legislation over the last 2 years. Another effort passed this year to limit the use, particularly of taxpayer dollars, on abortion. We think the people of this state are strongly pro-life, and we think these are common sense measures that are endorsed by the majority of Oklahomans when it comes to the issue of life. Several things that we're able to accomplish for kids and our senior citizens this session. Free admission for our senior citizens at our state parks. Free admission for at least one day a week to our museums for children. We want to create a culture of creativity and entrepreneurship in this state. Of course, a very major corrections study that's going to happen over the summer. Although that legislation was originally vetoed, of course we were successful in getting it funded and implemented. Corrections is broken in Oklahoma. For year after year after year, we've had a Band-Aid approach to funding of our correction system. Immigration reform, a large highlight of this session. Obviously, our immigration reform efforts drew national attention and recognition. The most comprehensive approach to immigration reform in the entire country, according to many independent experts. On that point, we simply believe that the rule of law matters. It needs to be enforced. Finally, faith-based solutions. We continue to believe that while government has an appropriate role to play, we think the faith-based community and voluntary sector also can play an important role, and government needs to be partnering with, working in collaboration with private groups and entities, and not at cross purposes. That's the overview of the agenda. It was a year of ideas for us in the House of Representatives. We think we advanced a pro-growth, pro-reform agenda. Again, we saw the forces of the status quo at work, trying to prevent change that can move this state forward for a better second century, but we remain committed to pursuing that agenda next year, but we're very proud of the accomplishments that we were able to make this session.